Hello, welcome to Shamanism, Metaphysics, and Grace. I'm Lauren Hubele, and I'm here with Jyoti Wind, who I will be interviewing today about shamanic journeying. Jyoti, welcome.
Thank you, Lauren. It's great to be here.
Jyoti, I've missed our talks, and I'm so happy to be coming back to this concept of journeying together with you.
Yes, I am too.
Yeah,
Yes,
good place to return to. So, Jyoti, would you like to open up our space today?
sure. I have something that I'd like to read, very short, called The Shaman's Path. Into non-ordinary reality I go, pausing at the gate. I submit my request. A guide steps up. Like dream time, I navigate. A direction calls, and I am there, here, now, in the experience. Seeing what I'm shown, I return in fluid motion. All is strange, yet nothing is.
Mhm. Sounds very familiar.
Yes,
Yeah. Would you like to call in the directions for us?
I would. I would. I'm going to remain seated just for the video. I call to the grandmothers and grandfathers of the East. I ask for your insights at the beginning of this new day. And I thank you for what's been given. I call to you, grandmothers and grandfathers of the South. Place of passion. Place my feet where they need to go. And I thank you for what's been given. Grandmothers and grandfathers, healers of the West, I call to you this day, asking for whatever healing is needed for myself, for others, that we all receive healing as needed. And I thank you for what's been given. Grandmothers and grandfathers, wisdom keepers, ancient mothers of the North, I call to you. I ask for the wisdom to see what I look upon. I ask for your grace. And I thank you for what's been given. Grandfather Sky, keeper of the starry night, I ask for your protection in all things, and I thank you for what's been given. Grandmother Earth, you whose cells we occupy, remind us of our own mercy and compassion, and thank you for what's been given every day. And to that wisdom keeper in my heart and in all our hearts, may that being, that wise part of all of us, be present as much as possible.
Thanks, Jyoti.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when we began this series now 2 months ago, we opened up with a topic on inner tools. And one of those tools that you mentioned was shamanic journey. And I know we've talked that this might be a good time to open that up a little bit more for folks. But I have a question first that I think, in case we have listeners that are joining us for the first time, you mentioned something in your opening prayer about non-ordinary reality. And I know that has a direct correlation to our talk on journeying, but perhaps we can begin there.
Sure. In the shamanic view, in the shamanic cosmology, we live in ordinary reality in our day to day. And when we step into a different frame of consciousness, they call it non ordinary reality. It's kind of like the dream time. There's not necessarily gravity, the laws are different. And you can be running down a dirt path through the woods and suddenly be flying. You know, the rules and laws of ordinary reality don't necessarily apply, at least not in the same way. And so when we do a journey, we are traveling to that place considered non-ordinary reality. We are making a journey. We are we are traveling, which is in deference to like psychic work, where the spirits come to you. In shamanic work, we go to their realm. We go to the spirits. We go to the allies, the compassionate spirits, the guiding spirits, whatever you want to call them. And they are our helpers, and they come to us at birth, or are given to us at birth. And we may not know them, and we may not feel we have any, but we always do. And so those are our guides. And as we become more conscious of them and easy with them, and get to know them, then their help is even more tappable. You know, it's more accessible to us. It's like when you become conscious of something, then you have a responsibility to say yes or no. When you're unconscious of it, it just kind of moves you along the track. And so as we become more and more conscious and interactive with these guiding spirits, we can ask for their help. And it's their job to help us. They love that. They love being asked. That's their reason for being, in a sense.
So, shamanic journeying involves allies or protective spirits, as you say, that it sounds like from hearing you that we build a relationship with over time, and they accompany us into this non ordinary reality.
Yes, accompany us, guide us, protect us, help us, sometimes do the work of the journey, and we are witness participants. It's their job to do the actual work of a journey, to take us where we need to go, to show us what we need to see, to give us what we need to have back as parts of ourself, parts of our energetics. And they do the work of it. We are, we state our intention, we develop trust, and then we journey and ask them for their help.
You know, Jyoti, this is an interesting question that's kind of bubbling up inside. But I've come across many people that have fear around this idea of journeying. What are some of your thoughts? Like, why is that so? Where is it coming from?
Well, I think that's a big question in a way, because there's several directions to go in. Sometimes it's the person's lack of trust in themselves. They're afraid of what they'll do, or even what could happen to them. You know, when you do a journey, I mean, it's been likened to a light trance. Okay, and that's why the rattle or the drum beat, it kind of entrains the brain to get out of ordinary thinking about your shopping list and your agenda for the day. It takes you out of that. It kind of helps suspend that. And so then your imagination is free to have the experience that's right for you in that moment. And so if a person doesn't trust themselves, or doesn't trust the unknown, or doesn't trust, it doesn't have a working relationship with hearing that beat of a different drummer and trying new things, then they could be afraid. They could be afraid of what could happen.
Mm.
I've never encountered, I hesitate to use the word never, but I've not encountered anything that frightened me in
Mm.
my years of doing journey work.
Sure. Just to frame what you're saying, it sounds like whatever the circumstance, it really comes down to our relationship with the unknown, and the more comfortable we can be with, and perhaps that has a lot to do with why there's such a renaissance of shamanic work. We are living in the great time of the unknown, right?
Yes, yes.
And
Nothing is set in in stone. I mean, it's changing, and sometimes we can see what's happening, and sometimes we know there's something else going on, but we can't see it, you
right,
know,
right.
in even in day-to-day life.
So that leads me into the big why question for our listeners is, why shamanic journey? Why would someone do that? And right away, I want to embrace this idea of what better time, right? What
Yes.
better time to develop a relationship? But that's my imprint on it. Why don't you share a little bit about your why, like why this is it could be a valuable path for someone.
Well, we're coming out of what's called the Piscean age, where you always needed an intermediary between you and deity, a priest or some type of intercessor. And we're moving toward the Aquarian age, another 175, 200 years. It's to be a golden age, and in this Aquarian time frame, you don't need an intercessor. You have the ear of deity yourself. And this is one way of exploring that, in a sense, that you can have your own direct. Shamanism is sometimes called the path of direct revelation.
Mhm.
Okay. That you can have your own experience of what you need to know, or where you need to go. You can have those blissful experiences sometimes that let you know that you are really one with what's happening, and that you can find your answers yourself. You don't necessarily need somebody to figure it out for you. And I'm not talking about therapy here. I'm a very big proponent of therapy, psychotherapy in different forms. But this is, you have a question and you do a journey with that question. That's your intention, to find an answer to this question. And you call your allies to you, and you go off into this journey, this lightweight trance, let's say, into non-ordinary reality. And you can find your answers. So some people are afraid of that. Going back to that other question, some people are afraid of finding out that they know what they need to know, they already know it, or that a being will come and tell them what they need to know, or that once knowing, you have to take responsibility, you have to integrate that, you have to step up. um, and sometimes it's just having a kind of out of the body experience. You know, you take off with your bird ally and fly over the mountains and fly down into the valleys and come back in your non-ordinary reality spirit body. You can breathe underwater, you can fly, you can have a lot of different kinds of experiences that are very joyful, surprising sometimes. Yeah.
And how do I know it's not just me making this up?
Yeah, that's the big thing. So I have a story. So having a friend, I was visiting a friend, and she wanted me to drum for her journey. She had never done it before. I gave her a few guidelines, and she laid down on the floor to do this journey, and then sat up within a few minutes and said, "I can't do this. I'm just making this up." And I said, "Yes, but first you have to trust your imagination. And second of all, why would you make up this storyline instead of the 60,000 other storylines you could have made up? This one has meaning for you. Otherwise, it wouldn't have shown up that way." So she laid back down. I continued drumming, and she had a great experience. She trusted her imagination, and that's huge.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. In teaching others to journey, I have found one of the integral pieces is getting someone to a point where they can relax
Yes.
and
Yes.
not have considerable expectations of performance anxiety, right? That gets
Absolutely. Absolutely. You don't have to do this right. You don't have to have some great adventure. It can be very simple. You don't have to perform well. Um, and in a way, you don't even have to know what you're doing in the beginning. You just have to trust that you're part of a larger whole that's very organic and interwoven, and that you are being held by the great mystery, let's say. And so you will have an experience that will help you grow, and so the more, it's like playing the guitar. The more you practice, the easier it is. The more trust you have, the more you can journey with intention and have the experiences you'd like to have.
and my experience has been the more you journey, the more connected you begin to be to with that great connection in the spirit. And
Yes.
and it permeates all you do, your waking time, your
Yes.
dreams.
Yes, it translates into your day-to-day life, and you become more trusting, and you become more insightful, more aware, and some part of you, I think, relaxes a bit, that maybe had been anxious or maybe had been hyper vigilant. There's a part of you that kind of relaxes because you know that other things are going on and they're okay, and that you are okay. And then all of a sudden, your life becomes more okay for you, more manageable.
Yeah. It's so beautiful to hear you say that. That is exactly my experience. And someone that has never um, experienced journeying or shamanic work that still is in that fear space of the unknown, it's really easy to be skeptical, like, oh, yeah, well, that worked for you, but
Right,
not for me, right?
right. But I'm not that different from anybody else.
Exactly.
I mean, I might have different views on things, different opinions, but anybody can do it. Anybody can do it. They just have to suspend their judgment and trust that what is happening for them in that moment is exactly perfect,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
And
Jyoti,
everybody's experience is so different. Sorry, everybody's experience is so different.
sure.
Yes,
Absolutely. And I know in leading a group, that's always beautiful and surprising. And having been in groups with you, and then also seeing how it all weaves in together somehow is absolutely magical.
Sometimes I'm just amazed at people's experiences, their adventures, and I just love it. I love hearing the stories of their journeys and their experiences, um, and even their questions. I mean, sometimes they don't know why it went this way or why they were given something. And so we talk about it, tease it out a little bit, but it's ultimately their symbolism that they can draw upon.
Sure. So, Jyoti, what are the basic mechanics of journeying? What are the pieces?
So when I lead a journey, I lead a short relaxation so that the person's body and emotions and mind has an opportunity to relax, mind and body together. And then um, ahead of time, I will have given some guidelines, okay, to call their spirit animal to them. If it's a first journey and they don't know who their spirit animal is, then that journey is the guide, is the journey, that the adventure to go find that and have that being show itself to them. It can be an animal spirit, it can be a mythical animal spirit, it can be a mythical figure out of legend or mythology. It just depends on the person. And so um, I will have set it up for them to have that and to call that spirit to them to meet them at a certain place. And so then after the relaxation, I'll do the rattling, and that's kind of to, as I said, entrain the brain. That's a Michael Harner expression. He used his drum that way, and he had studied with shamans all over the world, and he saw that that's what that did. And then I will do usually a guided journey for people, especially in the beginning, and have them go to a certain place to meet that spirit, meet their ally. And sometimes it shows up and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes they have to do it a couple times before that ally shows up and before they can trust themselves that this is possible, that this is happening.
Mhm.
Um, I remember one person, I led them through a journey, and he met this being in this clearing in the woods. And he said, "Are you my spirit guide?" And he said, "No, no, this other being is your spirit guide. But I came first to have a conversation with you. And then the next time you journey, you'll meet your spirit
Oh,
guide." And he told him who it was, what it was.
okay.
So people have different experiences.
Okay. So there's a relaxation experience, then calling in an ally. And then what are the other pieces to a journey?
So I usually continue to rattle while the person has their experience, and then I change the beat of the rattle to call them back
Mhm.
and lead them verbally back to come back, and to come back to themselves, back to their body, back to the room, and to take a few minutes to record their experience, and then we share. They'll share their journey with me and with the group if we're working in a group, because I believe so when I lead a class, I usually have a time of discussing a topic on shamanism, and that's a third, let's say, of the class, and the second third is the journey itself, and the last third is the sharing, because we all learn from other people's journeys and experiences and their doubts and fears and confusions and elation and joy, and we learn, we all learn from that. So I consider that a third of the class or of the experience,
Mhm.
that sharing.
And in that coming and going, you're leading someone through a portal and then back through a
Yes,
portal again.
yes, There's always a door to open and close behind you that comes from the Celtic shamanic tradition, but I find it very valuable that there's always a door to open and close that separates ordinary reality from non-ordinary reality.
Mhm.
Boundaries. So
Right.
it's always having a door to open and close behind you. And in the journey, the way you go is always the way you return, coming back and opening and closing that door behind you and coming back to yourself.
Mhm. I can remember early on in training with you, I journeyed once, and I don't recall if I was on my own or not, but I had the experience of being really tired afterwards and really exhausted. And as I was going through my day, I felt like I wasn't really there. And in reaching out to you, you asked, did you open and close the door and complete that journey within non-ordinary reality, and had me go back and do that, and it immediately changed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You want all of you to come back.
Yeah.
Yes. And so that door is just symbolic in a way of, I mean, it's real, it's a real energetic, but it's also symbolic for your consciousness to know that was that and this is this.
Mhm. Mhm. So do you have a little taste of this for everyone today to
Sure,
yeah,
sure. I thought I would do a very simple guided journey for going and finding your power animal
yeah,
and seeing how it works. And if people listen to this recording, they can always replay it and do it again and again if they want to, if the first
perfect,
time they were not successful.
perfect.
I just want to say this, in traditional shamanism, an animal, a spiritual being will show itself to you 4 times. And that's how you distinguish which of the animals that might show up to you is yours, is for you. Um, I don't always find that's necessary. Um, I find that if you call a spirit being to you, most of the time that being will show up and that is your spirit guide. Unless it tells you something else like my other story.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Great, let's do it.
Okay, so I'm going to start as I usually do with a short relaxation and then we'll do a short journey.
Perfect.
Okay? Okay. So take a nice deep breath and let go of any performance anxiety, having to get this right, having to know what you're doing. And on another breath, send your mind and breath down into your feet. Just relax your feet. Coming up through your legs, your knees, your thighs, your groin area. Just relaxing. Sending mind and breath down into your hips and lower back. And coming up through your spine, relaxing your spine, breathing across the broadness of your back, up to your shoulders. Sending mind and breath down into your belly, relaxing your belly, coming up through your trunk, relaxing all your sacred organs, your protective rib cage, up to your shoulders. Sending mind and breath down into your fingertips, coming up through your hands and arms, to your shoulders and across your shoulders, relaxing all of that part of your body. Sending mind and breath down into the back of your neck, up across your scalp, down through your facial muscles to your jawline. sending mind and breath down into your throat, up through your neck, through your ears, and across your brain. Put out a call to your spirit guides, your allies, and ask them to meet you in the clearing in the woods. So get up out of your body, your spirit, walk across the room to your front door, open and close the door behind you. Ahead of you, you see a gravel path. You walk down that gravel path. You feel the gravel crunching under your shoes, under your feet. The sun is shining on your shoulders, on your head. It's a beautiful day. Up ahead, on your right, there's a dirt path that leads into the woods. You turn right onto that dirt path, and you take off running through the woods. Around the trees, you hear the birds in the branches, dappled sunlight, smell the pine or the flowered scent of the trees. You keep on running, and up ahead you see a wall of mist, and you run right through it. And as you come out, there's a clearing ahead of you. You step into the clearing, and over by a huge old yew tree, there's a spot that you just want, that draws you, that you just want to sit down on. And in the surrounding woods around that clearing, you call out to your spirit guide, your ally, this being who is a protector, to come and sit with you. And you have a conversation with this being that showed up. Maybe you have a question for this being. So I'll leave you here for a few minutes. So if a being showed up for you, thank them for coming. And it's time to return. And so you leave the clearing, you run through the wall of mist, you run back through the woods the way you came, onto that dirt path, turning left onto the gravel road. You come up the gravel road to your front door. You open and close the door behind you, walk across the room, and re-enter your body. And so take a few minutes to record your experience and come back to yourself.
Beautiful, Jyoti.
It's fairly simple. It's just trusting that what you need will come. You know, that you'll have the experience you want to have it, that you want to have. You have to want it. You have to have the intention for it. You have to develop trust for it and with it, and that this is true. This is a true experience, And it seems like it's your imagination run amok, but it's not. Your imagination is a tool for shamanic journeying.
Hmm. I never really thought of it that way. That's absolutely true. And that I think could be what stands between so many of us and journeying because we've lost our connection with our imaginations.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything is a certain way, and we
Mm,
think a certain way, and we plan a certain way. And this is using the other side of the brain.
sure, sure. I think that's why it's so enjoyable for folks once they get going with it.
Yes. Well, it really evokes your creativity, you know.
Absolutely. Yes.
So I recommend to people, I'm very ritualistic myself. And so I recommend to people that when they're going to do a journey, they light a candle and that they have a small bowl of water present because fire and water are symbols of alchemical change and transformation. And it also puts you in a certain mindset. Like I have an anklet I put on my ankle, and that lets my body know, okay, it's a different time here. We're not doing, business as usual. We're doing this other thing for a while. And so some people use a bandana across their eyes to shade out light. Um, People have different ways of doing it, so that it lets your consciousness know, okay, it's time for this. It's not about working on my accounts. It's time for this other reality, non-ordinary reality.
These are all good reminders. There's something else that you made very clear to me, and when I began journeying was to be very precise about your question and have it be sharp and clear. And the more clarity to my question, the more clarity to the response.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you're journeying for a purpose, I mean, there's times to journey just to get to know this guiding spirit and play and, shape shift and become the same as that spirit. But there's also times where you want an answer to something. And so the more you clarify your answer, the clearer, I'm sorry, your question, the clearer your answer will be.
Anything else about journeying you'd like to share today?
I think that we have so much help
Mm,
available to us, and sometimes we forget, and sometimes we think we're alone in situations, or we think that we can't figure it out. Maybe we ask a friend, they can't figure it out. So this is another avenue of looking for answers, of realizing that you're part of a greater whole, that you weren't just dropped down here out of nowhere, and that there's a cosmology that's happening, and all the indigenous peoples, from where this came out of, the Tungus tribe in Siberia, the indigenous peoples of Northern Europe, to the Native Americans today in the US, to the Aboriginal people in Australia, to the Celtic people and the Germanic people, the Germanic tribes, the Nordic tribes out of the way north countries. They all had their shamans. They all had the people who were hunter gatherers by day, and by night they were the ones who were interested in the psychological and spiritual well-being of their people. The medicine men and women fixed the bones, gave the potions. They were more of the physical healers usually. And the shaman, sometimes it was the same person, but a lot of times it was different. And the shamans were the people who were interested in keeping the energy of the tribe clear and clean because they were a community. I remember being in Greece at this theater, and there were stone steps all the way up, benches for people to sit on, and then the performance was down in the middle. And what I learned was that they would have these dramatic plays, so that, and everybody in the village and nearby villages would come, so that they would all experience the angst, they would all experience the deep sadness, they would all experience the deep joy and laughter, and it kept the energy, the emotional body of the village clear.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, and so it would help everybody go through all the feelings together in the guise of this play, so that healing could occur. Nobody was hanging on to anything that became insidious in the village. Everybody was open to just letting go and being clear
Mm,
emotionally.
mm,
It kept it healthy, so the village healthy. So in the same way, in a sense, the shamanic practitioner is part of their community. They're working for their community. Nobody ever calls themselves a shaman. Your community might recognize you that way, but you don't call yourself a shaman. You might teach shamanism, you might do shamanic practice, but if you do shamanic practice, you are part of keeping your community clear, being available to your community for help or for service, especially.
mm. I love that reminder of service. I mean, that's really what this is about.
Yes, it is. Service and healing.
Lovely.
Yes.
Jyoti, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today.
You're very welcome.
I know folks listening would love to have a place where they can find out more about your work. And you offer different services because you offer journeys for folks, you offer courses, you have some training videos. How can people find out more about your work?
I have a website, jyotywindastrology.com, and I also have a free YouTube channel that has some classes on it, and I think two journeys that people can use. It's in the guise of finding your power animal, but you can use the rattling time to journey for whatever you want. And there's different things on there. There's 4 beginner classes of astrology, and some different kinds of workshops that I've recorded and put up there on different subjects.
And if someone wanted to join your newsletter, Jyoti, how would they do that?
They can email me through my website.
Okay, fantastic.
Yes. And I usually have, as the header, I usually have the current offerings for, I offer a free shamanic study group the second Sunday of every month. I recommend that people have some journey experience, even if it's minute, because we usually have a discussion and then do a journey and then share. And I also lead the quarterly and cross quarterly celebrations. They're up on that website as well. And for a lot of those, you don't need any journey experience. It's just celebrating that quarter of the year, or that goddess, or that spirit of that time, and giving thanks.
Thanks, Jyoti.
You're welcome, Lauren.